Welcome to the iPad Possibilities Podcast, episode number 8, Macworld 2010. Well, welcome, and this is the iPad Possibilities Podcast. I'm Tim, and I'm your host of this show, and this week I'm going to take a look at all of the announcements that went out at the Macworld conference this year, Macworld 2010. I know it happened a little while ago, but I thought I'd give you my feedback on some of the possibilities that emerged as a result of some of the announcements that happened at Macworld. So we're going to get in that in just a moment. I'd like to let everyone know that this show is supported by the iPad Possibilities Podcast app, and if you wish to support the show, that's the best way to do it. Simply purchase that app, and you'll get the shows 24 hours in advance on your iPhones or iPod Touches. And also, this show is supported by the iPad Fund found at the possibilitiesnetwork.com. And now, on to the show. The first application I'd like to talk about is RicoSoft's PDF to Office for iWork. Now, this is an application that was showcased at Macworld 2010, and what it does is simply takes a PDF document and converts it over to an iWork document, either Pages or Keynote. And this is incredibly helpful because the iPad, as you know, will have both Pages and Keynote, as well as numbers, available for it. So you're now able to take all of your PDF documents and convert those over to something that you can edit and work with, so you can actually use those documents on the iPad in a way where you can now edit them. You can make annotations to them. You can do all sorts of amazing things within the iWork suite. And I've tested out this application, and it works remarkably well. If the text is searchable within the PDF, you'll actually be able to edit that text within Pages and add new text and basically create your own ebook. If you have a PDF ebook, you're able to add on to it. It's a great application. It's very simple. It retails for $59, and I'd recommend it if you have a bunch of PDF documents that you'd like to get ready and prepare them for the iPad. The next product I'd like to talk about is a product called the Touch Gloves, and these are made by iTouch Gloves. They're found at itouchgloves.com, and this company makes a wide variety of gloves that work with the iPad and also the iPhone. And what it enables you to do is wear gloves and still be able to operate your Apple touchscreen device. And this will be useful in the coming months, as you might have dirty hands and you put the iPad, say, in a kitchen. You're able to just pop on a glove that's clean, and you're able to operate it with no problems. You don't have to worry about your iPad getting dirty. Just have some clean gloves by the iPad, pop them on, and you're good to go. And these gloves range from $100 to $200, and I think there's about 5 designs. So go to itouchgloves.com to find out some more information on those. The next product I'd like to talk about is something that is very interesting and very appealing to me, and that's a product called Square at squareup.com. And what they are doing is they are going to be releasing a dongle that plugs into your headphone jack of your iPad or iPhone. And what that enables you to do is simply swipe credit cards and actually have credit card payments right there on your iPhone or iPad. And within 10 seconds, you're all done. Start accepting credit card payments. There's no contracts, no hidden fees. It's simply they take 3% of whatever the transaction is, and a penny actually will go to whatever charity you would like to donate to. So a penny will go to that, but you simply swipe the card, they email you the receipt, and the credit card information is instantly deleted from your phone, so you don't have to worry about people stealing your numbers that way. And it's quick, secure, and it's really going to be a great product, I think, because you don't have to have a merchant account like the Mophie marketplace. You can simply swipe and you're done. It should work on a wide variety of devices, perhaps even Android devices, but there will be an iPhone app that goes with this, and it
It's going to be a great product. I'm very excited to start using it and testing it out on the iPad and the iPhone. It should be available later this year. You can find out some more information at squareup.com. The next product I'd like to talk about is a product called Flow TV. It's a juice pack TV by Mophie, and Mophie, as you probably know, makes iPhone battery cases, and they've started up a new type of case called intelligent cases. This is one of those. The other one is the Mophie Marketplace, which is a credit card reader case, and this one is called the Juice Pack TV, and it's for the iPhone 3GS. And I think this is interesting because I think this will be coming to the iPad very shortly. I think they might create a special case for the iPad to do this, or you could probably simply have this case sitting next to your iPad and use your iPad as a TV. Now, this case basically is a battery case with the Flow TV antennas built inside. And what Flow TV is, it's a mobile television. Anywhere you are, anywhere in the United States, you've got TV. It's separate from 3G, separate from wireless. It's its own spectrum, own set of wireless signals coming into your iPhone or iPad. And it simply receives this signal. And there's a Flow TV app that will soon be on the App Store, which you can download and watch TV. They have all the major stations like Fox, ESPN, NBC, all the major stations. They have Comedy Central, and it's basically just has this built-in antenna, and it charges your iPhone, and I'm sure there'll be an iPad version of this case soon enough, and I think it's a very exciting product because this will basically turn your iPad into a mobile television. A mobile television. You ditch your regular TV and simply have your iPad as your sole television device, and you can ditch your cable company. It's incredible. We'll be able to ditch our cable company. We'll be able to ditch our internet company if you want to, and just do all of this on the iPad now. It's really turning into that one device that does everything. It's a jack of all trades device, and it's a very exciting device, this Flow TV. So if you want to find out some more information about the Flow TV, go to mophie.com and go to their intelligent cases sections, and you'll find some more information about this. It is for the iPhone 3GS, but it does work with the iPad, I would assume, because the way it actually distributes the connection is through wireless. So if you have the case just sitting right next to your your iPad, it would simply broadcast that to your iPad. And I also believe they will create an iPad version of this case. I don't see why they would not. So just go to mophie.com to find out some more information on that. The next product that was showcased at Macworld 2010 is one of the products that I'm most excited about, even though it doesn't directly relate to my everyday life, but it's an announcement and product software solution by Mac Practice. Now, Mac Practice is a Mac software company that makes solutions for those that run their own medical practice, optometrists for eye care, and dental. So they make software for them to run their offices, and they've announced that in addition to their current iPhone solution, which they basically just have a web portal to all the information that they use in the Mac Practice applications, they're going to start immediately developing a new version of that web interface for the iPad to take advantage of all that extra screen real estate. And also, they're going to create a brand new application, not a web app, just a regular application for the iPad. So when people come to an office, they can, instead of getting a clipboard, imagine this, you get an iPad. And what you will do, you just fill in your regular document information, your name, social security number, blood type, all the information that you normally do on clipboards, doing that instead on an iPad. And this way, That information is instantly on their computers on the different levels of the hospital, so you don't have to refill out that form 20 different times when you're there. It's all done just like that. And when you're done, the iPad can be used for your entertainment. Gone are the days of magazines sitting on the table and other entertainment solutions in offices. They simply have iPads that they hand out that you use to enter your information. And after you're done with it, you just wait there until you're ready to go in, until they call your name. And that's just your one solution. It gets rid of the clutter, gets rid of everything, and replaces the need of entertainment in the lobby, the waiting room. And I think this is going to be incredible as doctors begin to use the iPad for medical purposes and really simplify and streamline how medical offices are run. And I'm very excited about the implications MacPractice and other software that deals with medical use and digitizing all that has to do with the iPad. So this is the first that I've seen. It's at macpractice.com, and they've got their development plans for the iPad there. So just go to macpractice.com to find out some more information about that. The next company that made a lot of buzz this year at Macworld's 2010 is the Omni Group. The Omni Group is a Mac software company that makes a wide variety of productivity tools for the Mac. They make Omni Graphel, Omni Graph Sketcher, Omni Outliner, Omni Plan, and Omni Focus. And what they've announced is they're putting pretty much everything on halt and diving right in on the iPad to get all 5 of their productivity applications for the iPad. Get them all up and running, all optimized, all designed, especially for the iPad. And they're going to begin with Omni Graphel and Omni Graph Sketcher. And these are some 2 great tools. Omni Graphel is like a mindstorm, brainstorming application that I could see being very powerful on the iPad, especially with all the use of sharing information that the iPad will provide. And Omni Graph Sketcher will be great for those that are in math and need to plot out statistics and really get some good graphs made. And doing all this on the iPad is very appealing because you can simply interact with the graphs and do all that you need to do with the graphs with your hands. You don't need a mouse and a keyboard to try to figure out how this works. You'll simply be able to interact with it and it'll be done. Omni Focus is a getting things done application that I absolutely love. I use it every day on the Mac, and this is the one that is on the iPhone as well. And instead of simply porting the Omni Focus app from the iPhone to the iPad, they've announced they're actually going to be doing a complete rewrite of the application. All of the user interface will be different. It'll be just a totally new application. So it won't be out on day one. Omni Graphel, Omni Graph Sketcher, they hope to have out on day one. But Omni Focus will be a complete rewrite for the iPad. And I'm very excited to see what they do with this because they've got 2 great versions of this app already. And I can't wait to see what they'll do with this 3rd version to create just a great productivity application that helps everyone just focus their time and energies to be the most productive they can. Now, the other 2, which should be coming out later, are Omni Outliner and Omni Plan. Omni Outliner is a fantastic outliner application and will be a great addition to the iWork suite, which will already be on the iPad. And it's just a great app, and I'm very excited to have that on the iPad to simply outline. It'd be great during business meetings, simply outline the notes and do it that way. And the final app is the one I'm absolutely most excited about, even though I probably shouldn't be most excited about Omni Graphel, because that'll just be so much fun to play with on the iPad. But Omni Plan is a project management application. And this application is a great application to simply manage all the projects you have, manage where your resources are going, who needs to do what things will cost, the timeline for things. adjusting projects as need to be adjusted. It's a great app for businesses to manage projects and teams, and I can't wait to have this on the iPad because it'll be with you everywhere. You're able to go over the projects with people, and it'll be much more immersive way to share that information around with everyone that needs to know the plan and to get the job done. So I'm very excited that Omni Group is going all in with the iPad and devoting so much development resources towards that. And this will be, I think, the best set of 5 applications one can add to the iPad to help you be more productive. I think with the Omni Group suite and the iWork suite, you'll have a true productivity machine that has not been available on other devices like this ever. And I think you could be more productive with this device than you could on even like a Windows machine because of these applications. I think it's incredible, and I think we're just seeing the beginning of productivity on the iPad. And if you want to find out some more information about the Omni Group, they're at omnigroup.com, and you can try out their Mac applications and kind of get a feel what those are like to see if you'd like the iPad versions when those come out. So that's at omnigroup.com. Now, at Macworld 2010, it was kind of interesting because no one actually had an iPad yet because it obviously has not come out yet. So people were making up their own models of it with plastic or cardboard and showcasing their cases with that inside of it to simply give an overview of what it might look like. But it was just kind of interesting to see the creative ways it was done. And they actually used one of these mock-ups at the iPad special event. They actually had a special event where they had a panel that simply talked about the iPad, what it means for comics, what it means for other platforms and devices and markets, and simply some initial thoughts on the iPad. All of these people had played with the iPad at the special event Apple held, so they just shared their insight on the event.
And I've actually asked Jason Snell of Macworld if I could share a segment of that audio for you here on this podcast, and he said I could. So I'm going to be sharing a 10-minute segment from this roundtable discussion on the iPad. If you'd like to get the full audio of this discussion, you can find it at macworld.com and also on iTunes for the Macworld podcast. And it's called the Macworld 2010 iPad Roundtable. And this segment I'm going to share with you, it's about 10 minutes long. They discuss accessories of the iPad, 2 different ways you're going to be using it, consumption and productivity, and will the iPad save the publishing industry? So in this 10-minute segment, they'll just talk about those things. And if you want to get the full audio, go to macworld.com and check it out.
You can pop it down on your table and have it be at an angle where you can actually see it.
I was going to say
there may be a lot of those.
That I view that there are like going to be 2 different modes for the iPad. One will be where it's primarily a consumption device, and in that sense is really portable. You know, it's like holding a folded newspaper or a big paperback book. You'll just carry it wherever you go. You sit down in a coffee shop and you'll browse web pages or whatever. And I think it'll be much more convenient for doing that than a laptop has ever been for that sort of function. Yeah. On the other hand, there may be times when you want to get more serious work done with it, and that's when you're going to want to pull out a portable keyboard, set it up on a stand, and it'll be a different environment. And I think you'll be able to switch back and forth as needed between those 2 environments.
Now, when this product was, announced, when this product was rumored for many, many months beforehand,
Years.
This particular product,
Decades.
maybe months, yes. When Nostradamus predicted that the iPad would be released, one of the things he predicted was that it would also save the industry of dead trees, I believe is what Nostradamus said, which we've come to believe is the publishing industry. Now, the iPad ships with a product, or actually there will be a product, it doesn't ship with it, you will download it, called iBooks, which is a book reader. And at the event, the New York Times demonstrated a New York Times app. So I'm interested in what you guys think about what the iPad means for ebooks and what it means for newspapers and magazines.
As someone and some As someone who grew up as the child of two librarians, I have a long history with books and with reading. And I think here's where I come down with Ted's sort of point about the applications, is that I get very worried about how ebooks work on a device like this, because for me, one of the joys of getting books is getting books in the library, sharing books with friends, borrowing books, lending books. And it seems like the early days of the music industry, that the publishers are really committed right now to locking these things down, so that if I want to lend Andy this new book that I read, that I have to give him my iPad, or I have to tell him to go buy it. I mean, if I had to buy every book that I read, and I read a fair amount of books, I would spend so much more. So either I have to read a lot less, or I have to, buy all of them, or what have you. And so I think it's a great idea for convenience. I mean, the idea of having so many books in this little portable device is extremely attractive, because you go on a plane or whatever, you breeze through whatever paperback you bought. Nice to have a second book there. But at the same time, losing that freedom aspect to just do with it what I want, and sharing it with people is worrisome to me.
Well, that's interesting. I mean, it's a computer, so it can do whatever developers want to do and whatever the copyright owners want it to do. To your issue of lending things out, already one of the greatest news about iBook was knowing that EPUB is going to be the basic format they're going to use, which is remarkably flexible. There are public libraries that, with the EPUB, with Adobe Digital Edition's DRM, which is pretty much the standard for publishing things with DRM in the ebook space, it is actually possible for a publisher to give a library 20 licenses to an ebook, and they're configured so that they can actually lend out these digital books, right, so that the license automatically expires and reverts back to the library in 7 days' time. So this really could be, it could make it even easier to, it could increase the power and the relevance of libraries by saying, turn your local public library, not the whole library system, but your local public library into a version of Amazon.com where you say, oh look, there's a license available for this Ludlum thriller. I'm going to basically sign that out without having to go anywhere.
And of course people said, I talked to a couple of people about this, and they said, well, there's nothing to stop a library in theory from developing an application that lets you check out books online. I mean, at the same time, of course, it'd be nice if libraries had the money to develop applications like that, and so often they are cash-strapped. But there are certainly possibilities. But it's the music industry has certainly fought a battle for DRM that they ended up losing, and I think it didn't. The question is, did that change that whole industry? Probably. I mean, are the publishers going to go through the same thing?
The thing is, DRM is going to be absolutely critical to the survival of newspapers and magazines. The web was an experiment that absolutely failed, and for newspapers and magazines, not because that they've stopped doing good journalism or doing really great feature articles, but because it sort of put the really expensively produced work of newspapers and magazines down on the same level of perception as anybody who has access to WordPress. And there's a lot of great journalism and great writing being done by your random person with WordPress, but it's a totally different thing. What it did was it trained the average consumer that anything you get through a web browser is supposed to be free. If they charge you $1 a month for it, that's not something they're supposed to be able to do, because anything you get through the web is free. What Amazon's Kindle did was change that a little bit by starting to teach people that expensively produced commercial content done by professionals is something that you download and pay money for. So by shifting their model from we publish things on the web to we publish things as ebooks that have to be asked for, requested, subscribed to, and or downloaded, this is how they can start actually getting money for all the journalists and all the photographers and all the art people that they actually have to pay.
Except that the books aspect here is books. There's no magazine solution. There's no news solution. That's actually what I found the most shocking about this. There's no periodicals for the iPad. There's no iMagazines, right? And that's, I think, what could have been possibly the most revolutionary aspect about this device is if Apple had created either a standard or used EPUB or modified it or done something in order to be able to, so I could get the subscription of my choice, so I could get, the New Yorker on my iPad instead of, having to get that paper subscription, because there's a rift. There's a really difficult challenge that the publishing industry faces, both news and magazines, in adapting to these kinds of devices. And not everybody, like New York Times, for example, is going to be able to create their app that is as rich and as feature-filled as the New York Times reader is.
Well, again, it's tens of thousands, if not hundreds of thousands of dollars to build an app like the New York Times app.
Right.
And although you get the flexibility of being able to develop anything you want, the downside is that you have to make that investment. So I think it's a good point. And the other point is the storefront aspect of it, which is if there's an iBook store or an iMagazine store, yes, you may be constrained by what Apple has built into their app, but everybody knows that it's there. I have no doubt that applications like Zinio are going to be on the iPad where you can get a digital replica of a magazine, but people have to know to go and do it, or the magazine or the newspaper is going to have to build their own app. And it becomes this kind of fractured space, a little bit like book reading on the iPhone is now, where there are sort of 15 different ways to get a book on the iPhone.
Yeah, I didn't feel like that there was this gaping hole where books were on iDevices. I mean, you can get that. There's the Kindle Reader, and there's a lot of other devices you can get ebooks on. But there is a really, as far as periodicals go, there's nothing. And that is something that Apple could have really changed the game on. And hopefully they will in the future, but I mean, there's nothing for that now.
I want to get back to the business about books for a second. I think another really positive way in which the iPad is going to work is for textbooks. Coming from my college professor days in my former life, when students are buying college textbooks, they're spending as much as several hundred to $1,000 a semester because the books are so expensive now, and they're these huge lugging around books that they're never going to take to class on a regular basis. Imagine being able, at some fraction of the cost, which I'm hoping the publishers would accomplish, at some fraction of the cost, being able to get an entire semester's worth of books onto your iPad, and then take your iPad to class, and whatever book you need is going to be there. I think textbook publishers are going to really look at this as a boon. And another thing in that regard is that textbook publishers are really concerned about selling used copies. As a way of eating into their market. And I'm not exactly sure that this will work out well because there's always the issue of pirating copies of the ebook, but I think the potentially, if it's handled right, the iPad could be a solution to the publishers having issues where they're losing market share because people keep reselling the old textbook.
Well, that's a case where you might actually make a really fair trade, which is by dramatically lowering the price of the textbook in exchange for it being a single use or a rental for the length of a semester. But I would always ask that question, that if they're so used to having a book for $100, are they really going to be willing to take it down to a price that's more reasonable?
Yeah, well, they'll see how the market will bear. I mean, the music makers, the movie makers are kicking, they had to drag them kicking and screaming into the internet age, and maybe the book publishers will be the same way, but I hope not.
I think there's iBook as an application is one of the most significant and quiet pieces of news out of that entire announcement. I think it's incredibly significant that that's been from the get-go in every piece of official promotional literature from Apple, so that this is an application that you will be able to download. The application that we tried on that day was probably the least functional of every application that was out there. There was almost I could do almost anything in Pages. I could do almost anything in the browser. All these other applications I could really use. iBooks, there was that. At what point is this going to freeze up? At what point is this going to stutter and slow down? And all this other functionality was turned off. I think the reason why it's downloadable is for two reasons. Number one, it's just not going to be ready in time so that it will actually ship on every single device that's being manufactured. And secondly, I think Apple understands that this is an application that's going to have to evolve. It's going to be something that every time you tap a button for the App Store and say, please show me all apps that have been updated, it can show you a revision of iBooks that was released 2 days ago, as opposed to having to wait for an iPad release.
Right, because if it's on the phone, it basically gets pushed out as an OS release. But an app you download, then it can auto-update.
Right. Yeah, the second thing, though, is that I don't think that iBooks is going to be the most significant part of the delivery mechanism for anything that's periodical in nature.
And again, that is the Macworld 2010 iPad roundtable discussion. If you want to get the full audio of that discussion, go to macworld.com or search in iTunes for Macworld Podcast. And I wish to thank Jason Snell for giving me permission to use that segment on this podcast. So those were just some of my thoughts on this year's Macworld conference, Macworld 2010, and how it relates to the iPad. I thought it was pretty awesome how we have now an application to convert PDF to iWork documents, gloves which we can use the iPad with, Mophie and Square credit card applications and readers, and a Mophie TV so we can have TV on our iPads and iPhones, medical uses now, and a full productivity suite by the Omni Group, which will really revolutionize the iPad. So that's all my thoughts I had for this year's Macworld. I'm sure next year at Macworld 2011 we'll have multiple shows on all that has happened and announced at Macworld, because I think next year it'll just be overloaded with amazing applications and amazing use cases and hardware add-ons
that will be announced at next year's Macworld 2011.
So I would like to thank everyone for listening to this week's edition of the iPad Possibilities podcast. And as always, please send your feedback and comments to iPadPossibilities@gmail.com. And please voice your comments to 209-542-iPad. That's 209-542-4723. So send in those voice comments and what possibilities you see in the iPad. And also, if you want to show your support for the show, I would love if you guys could write your reviews and rate the show in iTunes, and just simply let me know in that venue what I can do better as well and what you like about the show. And this show is also supported by the iPad Possibilities podcast app found in the App Store for $2.99. And with that app, you'll get the shows a full 24 hours in advance. And also, if you go to the Possibilities Network, that's where this podcast is found at, thepossibilitiesnetwork.com. You'll find my iPad fund. And if you feel that this show is worth something to you, feel free to donate and help me get my first iPad. So I wish to thank everyone once again for listening to this week's show. And we will speak again on Sunday night. Go to thepossibilitiesnetwork.com to find out more information about our live show, which we have every Sunday night at 9:30 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. Until then, this is the iPad Possibilities Podcast.